Good morning, Center 2. So we're going to review. We are going to be drawing our bar graph, and with me I have a small table here, and this table is going to be showing us the types of flowers. I have kinds of flowers over here and number of flowers that I counted, and I'm going to use this table to help me to draw my bar graph. Now this can also be called a bar chart. It shows you picture representation of the data that you have in your table. So I'm just going to use the same information I have here to make a bar graph. So here on my bar graph, I already drew a line, and this is where I'm going to put the title of my bar. Over here, I'm going to put the title of my scale, and over here, I'm going to put the title of the items that I'm going to be using. So first, I want to go ahead and draw a little L. So I'm just going to start from the top of my line, and I'm going to go straight down. When you are drawing this, you're going to be using a ruler, and that's my first line. Now when you're drawing your lines, you want to make sure you start on one line and you end on one line. Don't end in between, like in the middle of a space where there's nothing. You want to start on a line and end on a line. That helps your measurement to be better and to be more accurate. So I'm going to go ahead and follow this line here, and then I'm going to draw my other line on the bottom. Right where I stopped that line, I'm going to put my other line. Now these lines are called axis. So this line is the y-axis. Let me label that really quickly. So this line here is the y-axis. Put A-X-I-S. And the y-axis shows us how much. It's the scale. We usually put numbers here. And the horizontal line going this way, this one is called the x-axis. And the x-axis will tell us the names of the items that we're going to be putting up. Now I'm using my same table here to do my bar graph. So in order for me to know how much numbers I'm going to put on my scale on the y-axis, I'm going to come here and I can look, and the highest number is a 9. So I'm going to make sure that when I put my lines, I only put 9 lines. I'm going to go up to the highest number. So where the y-axis and the x-axis meet is the starting point right here, and the starting point is always a 0. So I know that I start off with a 0. And so this is a 0, this line here is a 0. Let me choose a brighter color. Let's choose pink. And so I'm going to use each line as a scale. Each line is going to be a number. To represent the line, I'm just going to put a little line there, and this becomes number 1. Then my line here on this line becomes number 2, 3. Now I'm going to stop here for a little while to just remind you that the spaces in between the lines are called intervals, and the intervals need to be the exact same equal amount. So because our books already have measured lines, we can use these lines as our guide, and the intervals, the spaces in between, are equal. So let's continue. 4. This one will be 5. This line will represent 6. 6. This line will represent number 7. This blue line is number 8. And this one will represent number 9. So I will stop at 9 because I am only going to go up to the highest number on my table. And my highest number here is 9. So I know that I'm going to stop. This total is the tally, but we're not using our total for the moment, so we don't have to worry about that. Our tally is 9. That's the our highest number of data is 9. So that's where I'm going to stop. Now I'm going to put my name of my items on the x-axis, and I have rose, tulip, lily, orchid, and forget-me-not flowers. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to, let's see how much they have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to put 5 little lines on the bottom here, and using your ruler, you can measure out the same amount of space. It's good to just put a little ruler here, and then you mark it at every 1 inch, and that would be great for you. So I'm going to put here 1, 2, 3, 4, Now you will have a ruler so you can make sure that each of this is every 1 inch so that they're equal as well. And I'm going to put a shorten for the name of each. So this one is Rose. I think I could put the entire name for Rose because that's a short word. So this little line here represents the rose. And then I have Tulip. So I'm going to put the full name for Tulip too because that's not too long. So I have a tulip there. And this line here will represent the other one on the list, which is a lily. So I'll put lily here. And then my other line here will represent the other rose, which is an orchid. And then we have forget-me-not. So I'll put orchid here. And this one will be the forget-me-not. So I'll just put F for forget, and then I'll put me, not, so that I know what it is. So now I'm going to switch up colors just to give us a little variation. Let's get yellow. So now I have to go ahead and draw in my bars. This is where you all will be using your ruler to help you with your little bars. You want to try to make your bars look nice and neat. Try to make them look all the same size, okay? So when you get your bar graph, it's going to be a lot easier because the bar graph, oopsie, let me take that out. The bar graph gives you a lot of different lines that you can use to just shade in, and it helps a lot, okay? So I want to go ahead and plot my rows. So let's see, rows, there's only one rose. So I'm only going to draw my bar up to the first line. There. Let me switch my brush here. 1 minute, guys. Yellow. Okay, and that. So rows only goes up to number 1. So number 1 stops on the first blue line. So I will just go ahead and draw my bar on the first blue line to represent the rose. So we know that rose is 1, and if you have your crayon or your marker, you can shade in rose. Then let's go to tulip. On my table, tulip is at 5. So I'm going to go ahead and tulip, right on top of tulip. I'm going to look for 5, but I want to make sure that I'm right on top of my tulip. And so this is where your ruler comes in handy because it can help you to guide you. So I need to make sure I stop right on the line where it has 5, exactly on that line, and I'm going to go ahead and put my tulip, and then you can color in your tulip nice and neatly. Color it in nice and neatly. I'm just going to do it quickly for the sake of the video. We don't want it to go too far. And don't go out of your lines like I just did, okay? Make it neat. So let's look at Lily. I think Lily is 5 as well. So we're going to go up to Lily and go right up to the number where it has 5. So that's my Lily. And you color yours in neater than my one. And then Orchid is 4. So let's go ahead and do orchid, where orchid is 4. So I'm going to use this line here. I'm going to come here to my orchid and draw my bars. And you want your line to be right on that line there when you're drawing it, and then you color in your orchid. And the last one is forget-me-not, and forget-me-not has 9. So I'm going to make sure I follow that 9 line. And I'm going to come right there and draw straight lines. You all will have your ruler. So your lines will be a lot neater and nicer. And then you color it in. So I just finished putting in my bars to represent. So if I didn't know, I can look and say, oh, there's 1 rose. There's 5 tulip, 5 lily, 4 orchids, and forget-me-not is 9. Now I'm almost finished here. I need to go ahead and label my table. What title am I going to give this table? I'm going to name it the same title that's on, label my bar. I'm going to give it the same title that's on my table. And that title is type of flowers. So I'm going to type in here types of flowers. So you're going to make sure to put in your title of your table. Okay. Now I also need to give the sides. And to finish it up, we're going to go ahead and we have to label the y-axis. We have to label over here. So let's look at our table. Over here we have the number of flowers. Where we have the number, we call that the number of flowers. So we're going to go to our table here and write it sideways. Number of flowers. You're going to use the same table to help you to label, right? So you're going to put the number of flowers here. And then on the bottom here, we're going to label this as well using our table. We call those kind of flower. So I'm going to put kind of flower here. So we have kind of flower. And that brings us to the end of our bar graph. Your bar graph should have a title, types of flowers. You should have your y-axis with your numbers, equal intervals in between. The bottom should have the names of the items, like we're doing rose, rose, tulip, lily, orchid. And then we label our axis. Over here we have the number of flowers. On the bottom we have the kinds of flowers. Our axis always starts at 0, where the y-axis and the x-axis meet. And our bars represent exactly on the line how many we have. So these lines represent 5, 5. This one is 4, and the highest one here is 9. So this is how we make our bar graph.